determine this who, what, when, where, and how. And then secondly, it's really, really important to talk with your stakeholders. I see so many times where a company will come in, they'll design something and they'll set something up, and then the people who are actually going to be utilizing that space are like, wait a minute, like our equipment doesn't fit in here, or this is really uncomfortable. So please have conversations with those people, because that opens up a lot of just small details that make a huge difference in the success of your company going forward in the future. Jumping into leasing and purchasing, the biggest issue with leasing or purchasing are going to be tax purposes and cash flow. As Jesse said, if you're purchasing a building, you're looking at 20-35% down, whereas if you're leasing, you may only be doing first and last month's rent or the equivalent of that to get going. With leasing, you get more flexibility. With purchasing, you have more stability and control, because if you are leasing, the landlord's going to have restrictions upon your property that are going to be in addition to your municipal, state, and federal rules. One thing that a lot of people have questions on are types of leases. Gross lease, modified gross, you're going to see a lot of that. Essentially with that, the landlord has already rolled in their taxes, insurance, and they're just going to charge you for incidentals like mowing the grass or maintaining the parking lot. And then you'll be responsible for if the air conditioner breaks, things along those lines. Triple net leases, the landlord essentially puts all costs back onto you. So you just pay a base lease rate, and then you have actual costing of all your additional expenses, which a lot of people shy away from this because they see the rent and then they see this other big number that's $3 to $6 a square foot, or in Chisholm Creek, $11 a square foot additional. And they say, hey, I don't like that, but you're doing actuals, whereas if you're on a lease, the landlord, if he thinks that your other expenses are going to be $3, he's probably going to charge you $4.50, because he or she's going to want to ensure that there's a cushion there to ensure that they're not paying in addition. Full service, you see mostly in office, where the landlord covers everything, including utilities. And then build to suit, development, those are where you go and you have a very specific use, and whoever your landlord's going to be builds that for you specifically. Timeline, if you're doing a small space and you don't want to make many changes to it, you can start as short out as maybe 3 to 4 months. If you are going to need something that's customized, I would recommend getting going on in about 18 months ahead of time. Purchasing, sit down and talk with your banker. Jesse went first, and that's rightly so, because you can come to me, we can create the best plans, and then if you go talk to the banker and they have a very different number, that drastically changes what you're going to do. When picking a property, when purchasing, always consider permitted use. There's lots of beautiful corners out there that look perfect, but there's some restriction, and then with due diligence, there's a lot of things such as environmental risk you can have with your property. Timelines are essentially the same. What you need is a very solid team: banker, attorney, architect, civil engineer, all those come into place when you're purchasing. So with that, very quick overview. What questions can I answer today?
Kirby, you talked about triple net leases?
Yes.
And how the tenant is responsible for the expenses?
Yes.
What type of expenses would those be that they're responsible for outside of the rent?
So with triple net, you're paying taxes, insurance, and all your building maintenance costs. And in addition to that, then there's also capital improvements. So if the landlord decides that adding more lighting or upgrading the landscaping plan adds more value to your business, then those are costs that are going to be rolled over. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, fabulous. So I am Amber Tyler. We'll see what this. I'm with Ida Bailey. So I've been in more than one of these presentations and thought, who is this person that's talking to me? So I just wanted to start with that and a little bit about myself. My pride and joy is my 2.5-year-old daughter. If you talk to me for more than 5 minutes, you're probably going to hear about her. So she makes her way into every presentation because she is ingrained in who we are. But I find that very odd in public accounting. So I'm an audit partner. I've been with my firm 15 years. And there's very few people that rise to public accounting that have a 2.5-year-old at home. So I think that speaks tremendously to our culture. At Bailey, we're a top 25 accounting firm. So we have offices in 19 states. We celebrated our 100-year anniversary. So we're not just here and gone tomorrow. We're going to be around forever. Sorry, my stats are old. We're always expanding. We focus west of the Mississippi over to California. But we're definitely more than an accounting firm. So Jesse alluded to it. We want to be an advisor throughout the process. So one of the things we find, and we're very blessed that we don't find this as often, but you need to get a financial statement in order. So a lot of times people will walk up to us and say, hey, we're going to get a big loan. We need this financial statement. We need it tomorrow. The timeline's never tomorrow. Germa, I think, mentioned 3 to 4 months. And you might think, wow, that's a long time before we even start the process. But you need a financial statement. You don't just need to know how much cash you have, but how much cash is available. Do you have the restrictions on that? What's current that can be used today? What's long-term? We call that a classified balance sheet. The other thing that banks are going to want to see probably is the income statement. So how does that break out? What's your revenue? What are your cost of goods sold? And what are your general expenses? So having a classified flow of information is very important. The basics of accounting. So we have clients that, man, they prepare their tax return, they're golden, they know what everything is for a tax return basis. They'll go get a larger loan, and then the banker will say, well, what about generally accepted accounting principles? And people are like, I do my tax return, I'm good. So talk to your banker, see if they're going to accept a tax basis, tax return, financial statement, or if they need that to be on a different basis of accounting. Is a cash flow statement needed? So a lot of companies, even if you're keeping up with your balance sheet and your income statement, you may or may not have a cash flow. You may not have that projection to be able to see, can you service your loan? In 3 years or 5 years, as your loan payment stays consistent, what are your financial projections like? And then ultimately, do you have something timely and relevant? So if you're only doing your tax return annually, you may or may not have the most up-to-date books. So is that timely? We definitely want to help you understand the numbers as well. So iBailey is more than just an accountant. We truly do want to be your advisors. We have services that can come alongside of our businesses and serve as kind of an outsourced CFO, kind of help you understand the data. Sometimes I joke the best entrepreneurs in the whole wide world are the worst accountants. I'm an amazing accountant, but I cannot go out and start a business today. I just don't have that mindset. So if you don't have that CFO or controller, get somebody to come alongside you and serve at that. We do help talk to bankers, and sometimes bankers might mention assurance services. So whether that be an audit or a review, they might want somebody to look over the financials to kind of substantiate what you're telling them is actually true. So that would be something to talk to your banker about. And then ultimately, you want to talk to your tax representative. So Germa mentioned there's a lot of tax consequences as you look to build or lease. And the more we can talk to our clients and move that on the front end, the better. 3 things that are kind of cool that we can offer. That as I thought, okay, what do people not know about accounting and building a business? What can I bring to the table to offer you guys today? So we can do what's called a cost segregation study. What that does is says basically, you pay for a pizza. Now we're going to depreciate it. So you pay for your building, which is your pizza, so to speak. How are we going to slice it up? Traditional real estate is depreciated for tax purposes over about 30 years. So that's a long, long time. A cost segregation study says, hey, wait a minute. We're going to chop this up. There's some electrical, there's some cabinets, there's some carpet. There's a lot of other components within this building, so we can start to make smaller slices of a pizza that we can depreciate a lot faster. Ultimately, the pizza or the building is still depreciated, but it just front loads that depreciation, which gives you tax savings on the front end. It's a really cool service. So kind of looking for that hidden value that is in the building if you actually do a build out. There's a lot of energy efficient deductions and tax credits. So as you're looking to build, I mean, people might say, hey, if we do this upgraded insulation, it's gonna cost you $1,000 more. That sounds like a lot, and I mean, 1,000 here, 1,000 there, it just adds up. But if you can get some tax credits to help offset that cost, and you know you're gonna save on your utility bills going forward, it may be very well worth it. Personal experience, we just are adding on to our personal residence. We're adding on about 2,000 square foot. So we had to add on another HVAC system. We're getting a $600 rebate from OG&E that was an awesome surprise that our contractor gave us. We'll also qualify for a personal tax credit because of the unit that we put in. So I mean, just one small example of as you're working with your contractor and they say, hey, have you considered this? It might not be surface value cost to compare. And then ultimately a cash flow analysis. So as our clients look to build, they might have the money today, but if we do a projection alongside of them and say, okay, in 10 years, are you gonna have the money to service that loan? I have one client right now that's looking at a $30 million investment into his business, and he has the money today, but as we do his tax projections and look down the future, in about 10 years, he might not have money to pay the piper and to pay the IRS and everything. So definitely look at that. Don't only look at today, but look at what funds do you have to service your debt for tax savings. What else is going to happen? Building a building has so many more implications than just servicing the debt today. So consider all of those items and walk through your advisors. Definitely, it's funny how much connectivity there is. I mean, we work with bankers almost daily, and we work with Price Edwards actually as well on a few projects. And so coming alongside and just saying, hey team, let's all sit down together and talk through this is very important. So that's just a quick synopsis. There's so much more that we can go through with the financials. I have cards as well. My contact information's up there. It looks small because I see a few people put on glasses, so I can definitely give that to you. But any questions right now? Definitely, feel free to holler.
I'm a little bit more.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
If you leave your name, email, and phone number, we will email you all the speaker's contact information as well. We'll send you cards.
I'm a little bit worried because anytime you ask an architect to only talk for 5 minutes, it never happens. It's just kind of tough. So I'm Matthew Radcliffe with Mass Architects. Our tagline is Mass Architects Big Ideas. So we want to dream, and we want to think of whatever project you might have, big or small, and we want to find the biggest idea we can in it and just celebrate that all the way through. We don't have any particular specialty other than the big idea. We've done everything from a caviar processing plant in Afton, Oklahoma, to a dairy goat facility in Darlington, Oklahoma, to the Catholic Charities headquarters, trying to convince the city of Oklahoma City Plan Review of what we were actually trying to do at Tract 30 at Chisholm Creek. That took a while to get the plan reviewers to see what we were trying to accomplish. To working a lot with the City County Health Department. It's never too early to call your architect and kind of start talking. So there's a bunch of us that work there, kind of going through the staff. So our role is really from beginning to the end. The same time you're talking to your banker, you're talking to your realtor, you're talking to your accountant to try to figure all this stuff out, you really need to start talking to your architect as well. When you're looking at different pieces of property to buy, we can look through there and do site analysis and start to plan buildings and understanding the zoning and the ordinances, and we can really give you a pretty quick feasibility study on if your dream is going to fit on this piece of property before you spend a whole lot of time digging into the further due diligence items such as environmental reports and geotechnical reports and things like that. So, but along with just starting programming and figuring out what is your dream, what do you need in a building, let's look through these efficiencies and see what we can do to maximize what you have and what you're going to do. One of the edicts in our office is that what we do for a living is spend other people's money. So we're not going to live there when we're done. We're not going to work there when we're done. we're not the ones paying for any of it. That's between you and your lender. It's somebody else's. So we're sitting here trying to dream with you and for you. So we want you to get as much out of it as you can. So that includes some pre-design where, we might start looking at some of these other feasibilities. Again, like I said, with the code and zoning analysis, if you have an existing building, this becomes a really significant element of going through the code and seeing what we can do or not do with an existing building. And then we can get to the schematic design rather quickly. Let's start thinking about what some of these ideas might look like in plan and in renderings. This is where we kind of throw in their marketing, because a lot of our projects kind of get to this point of a nice set of plans and renderings, and then I might sit for a little bit while we do fundraising and get everything else in order. Whenever we try to go for a public job that's got a simple RFQ or an RFP, we've got to, put our qualifications together and put our portfolio together and try to go for an interview. And we may burn enough hours to be, $1,500, $2,000 worth of time. We would much rather spend and invest that risk of $1,500 to $2,000 doing front-end schematic design for a potential client, dreaming and seeing if we can make this a deal, than we would just sitting there. We call it the hamster wheel of, we might fill out, 10 RFQs to get one interview, and we might go to 5 interviews before we get selected for one of those jobs. But if we take the time to do some site analysis and do some quick schematic designs and put a picture in front of a client or an owner, that they can start to see some real activity in it, well, those we'll get 5 out of 10 on those. And so that's kind of where we want to go. Once we make a real deal, then we shake on it. Then we start to paper up and we start to do contracts and start to really invest time into design development and figuring out what all the different components are and engineering all the parts and pieces and doing all the interior design elements. Once all of that is selected and approved, we do the construction documents, the contract documents, start to make sure that this whole thing is buildable. Work with the city for plan review correspondence, make sure everything's good to go. Watch it as it's being constructed, answer any questions about the design throughout the entire process, and then help our owners with the project closeout. Now, this list doesn't change with how we deliver the building, whether we're going to just design the whole thing and then bid it on the street to select GCs that we want to do, or more preferably, if we have a construction manager or going design build, we will coordinate with our builders as early in this process as possible to have the maximum amount of efficiency as we go through the whole thing. So again, as we like to go from just dreams, from big ideas to reality, one of our longstanding clients is the Oklahoma City County Health Department. When they decided to build a new administration building, they came out and decided they were going to find the least healthy zip code in Oklahoma County. There was an article written in the New York Times called Door to Door in the Heartland, and they really sought out to change the numbers in that zip code, 73111. They found 54 acres there, called us to okay, what can we do with this? How can we really affect it? So they didn't know what they wanted. We gave them a really nice administration facility, auditorium that gets used by the community daily. We had walking trails, community gardens. We had 2 or 3 different civic groups utilizing those walking trails before we were even able to do a final punch list on them. To the state capitol. I actually have to leave a little bit early here in a few minutes because I've been summoned to go to the Public Safety Commissioner's office to give him a security briefing on the building. But we've been the caretakers of the state capitol since about 2007. The president of our company is a state capitol architect, so he's been kind of watching this, helping. We did a historic conditions report, which became the precursor to the bond issues that are now funding the Capitol restoration. So I get to sit in on oversight and make sure that the design builders working on that project are doing it correctly to the best interest of the state and the taxpayers and are following the bond language. Again, like I said, with the existing buildings, we do a lot of projects that use historic tax credits, as was mentioned just previously. I'm trying to offset some of those costs. This is one that we've got going on in downtown Tulsa. Nordam had these 4 buildings. They recently sold them, It's now referred to as the Midland. It's kind of undergoing its corn shell restoration right now. But again, you see down there the photo of what a client has to look at and go, what can this be? So we want to sit there and dream and come up with reality that you can see. Put these renderings in front of you. It is way cheaper for me to continue to change the panels and the design when it's just at this stage than whenever it starts to get constructed and things are up there. It's cheaper for me to move a line on paper than it is to move a piece of steel in the field. So we try to make sure that we're dreaming this entire time. So again, I tried to go as fast as I can. I don't know if I made it 5 minutes. I could continue to talk forever. These are just a few more of our projects, but thank you for your attention. If you have any questions about the architectural process or what we do, why, when?
So, I just want to let you know that health facility is prepared. We played rugby down there. Rugby match is a beautiful place.
Right.
And I was when I was like, wow,
Yeah.
amazing that one.
Yeah, that facility turned out great. Then we got to partner with the energy and put their practice fields out there.
Yeah, practice one.
Yeah, it's
And you
fantastic.
wasn't that energy for the project coming up for the big stadium?
No, we haven't had a chance to get in on that one. The only thing we've been able to do for the energy is their practice facility and their locker rooms there.
Yes.
But then we got to take that idea with what we did up at 63rd Street, and we did it again for the health department down at Southern Oaks, down on the south side. So I don't have my actual professional photography yet, but this was one of the renderings of that one that we just put up near Farmingly Elementary down on the south side.
When a client comes to you, how much time between then to when you can hand it off to the contractor to say, all right, we can start moving?
That all depends on how fast the client wants to move and make different discussions. The first time we meet a client, we want to hit them back in a week or 2 weeks with our first initial ideas, so then we can kind of go from there. Once we kind of know what we want to do, it takes us about 30 days to do schematic design, maybe 30 to 40 days to do design development, get everything engineered, and another 30 to 40 days to kind of get our construction documents going. So we like to plan out, it's almost a 4 and 5 month time span before we shake hands and say, yeah, this is the thing we want to do, to we have final construction documents ready to hand over for permitting. But again, we want to talk with the builders throughout the entire process. It really helps with the feasibility and the constructability of everything we're trying to accomplish. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would have to sneak out.
Thanks for coming, no worries. Have fun at the principal's office. All right, so I'll bring this home. So for the general contracting side, to kind of complete the thought process of the construction project, is the on time, on budget, and that all begins with preparation, and that's what we're doing here today with today's meeting, is educating everyone on what are all those processes and how to get started on the right foot. So I won't go into this too much, but this is where Gurma can talk to you more about the common mistakes landlords make on tenant improvements. And they can walk you through that kind of, the pros and cons of that. What I'm going to focus on today is your construction needs and methods. I'm going to talk about the 4 main types. So design, bid, build, which is hard bid. Construction management, negotiated bid, and design build. So design, bid, build is what's known as hard bid. This is where Matthew was saying they can do a set of plans and get it all done and put it out on the street for bid. Typically, this is your pros is you're going to get your lowest price possible, and you'll get 100% of construction documents. The downside of that is it's really expensive to get 100% of drawings up front. And so your state agency and your public agencies do that because they have to be a good fiduciary of people's money, and there's no other way to do it to be competitively bid. And then the incentive to be competitive may result in items being left out, and that's where you end up with change orders, and that's where the general contracting industry gets a bad name. Lastly, low cost on the front end may result in the change orders at the end. So the kind of diagram will show you just how it's your relationship with the owner to the architect design team, and then the owner separately to general contractors. This is a project that we did that was designed and built, it was a ground up. And what was unique about this one, they bid it out and then they came back and you can layer, they did negotiate a bid. And they said, yes, you're low bid, but it's still too high. And then we negotiate items out of the project and try to get them into budget. Construction management, this is where Matthew had mentioned is preference on, with them is construction management or design build. And that is because as a general contractor, we can get involved at the schematic stage. So they'll just do a line drawing and we're able to get you some square foot pricing and start your budget, which that budget will go to the banker and to the CPA, and they can help you understand where you lie. And if you can afford it, if you can't afford it. So the banker's gonna look at your CPA prepared financials and let you know if you can afford that $1 or $2 million building or $20 million building, or if you're a little shy. So construction management, this saves money, it reduces risk because it puts the general contractor as a GMP, a grand maximum price from the beginning. It reduces scheduling projects and then the phasing out of your complex jobs to get it done faster. Because we get involved sooner, we're able to work alongside your architect. So as they're drawing, we're moving right behind them. So we're phasing in. And so you can start your construction, we can start demoing, we can start getting some of the utilities in the ground while we're waiting for permit. And as permit comes out, then we get those utilities inspected, pour slab, and keep going. So there's some time savings involved in that. Again, with this one, you see how the owner, it's directly to the general contractor and then out to the subs. And then there's a correlation with the architectural and general contractor team. This one, you are allowed, you're able in construction management to pay a CM fee, and then the general contractor shows you all the costs. Whereas in your lump sum bid, you're just getting the schedule values, and the GC fee is lumped into there. This is a project that we did in Dallas for IBC Bank, that was construction management. They came to us when they had 30% plans, and they did interview only. So we came to the interview, and we actually already had a full budget, and that's why we won this project, where the other two Gs came to the interview for an interview, and they didn't have any numbers to back up the 30% drawings. And then we worked with the architect while they finished the drawings to keep the client into their budget. So if we start seeing that the budget's starting to go out of place, we'll sit down with the architect and look at specifying materials that aren't as expensive. Negotiated bid, this is where you have an interview and basically tell the GC, this is my price point, I have $3 million to build a 20,000 square foot facility, can you make this work? And you work alongside them, so you're picking them up front. So your competition is in that interview stage, and you're getting your fee from your general contractor and then working with them to get to the price. So usually Pro is standard for building types, so it depends on this works for a lot of restaurants. They already know exactly what they're doing. So right here, Zaxby's, they built many of these, so they know what's going on, and it works for them. The cons is that you're dependent very heavily on your general contractor, and so because there's less competition, it may drive up costs. Someone like Zaxby's that's building a dozen of these every month, they know exactly where they'd be, and they're driving those numbers by to the general contractor with their lighting and flooring stuff that they use all the time. So design build. This method is the fastest delivery method because we're working alongside them, similar to CM, and we're hiring the architect. As you can see, it changes. And you get flexibility in accommodating a tight budget because we're controlling the architect and what they're specifying, and it doesn't get out of hand. I love mass architects and their big ideas. Big ideas cost money, and so with their big ideas in this situation, we're able to say, those are awesome, but it's not gonna fit in the client's budget. And what's great about that is if you open the door to the candy store, the child wants everything. If you only give them 3 different types of lollipops, they're only gonna choose one. And so that scenario is the same with the clientele. If they show you everything you want and then we take it all away, it's devastating, right? I mean, can you imagine locking that big door to the candy store? Your child is gonna throw a tantrum of a lifetime. versus you just giving them what fits into their budget and then they're very happy. So the cons is the design team working with the general contractor upsets the typical system of checks and balances to ensure quality and product. Again, this, and I'll talk about at the end, it all comes down to transparency, and we do that through our communication packets and our daily meeting minutes. So we don't hide anything. We, you can see we've been changing our core values, but I have them on this wall, and that's why it's peeking out over there. But one of our core values is transparent. We have daily notes that go to our clients, and we have our bi-weekly meeting packets that we show the client. Every 2 weeks, we have a meeting and explain the construction process to them. So we try to avoid those cons of low transparency. This is a project that was done in budget, and what I love is most people walk into this building, and I'm throwing out their secrets now, and they tell the ownership, they're like, did you build this building for $5 million? Because we were able to put in so many bells and whistles to this client, but in a condensed manner. And so this is the true design build output. This client holds lots of parties and events, and it has garnished them business, and it tells the true story. So what I want to leave with you guys today is the definition of imprint, an indelible, distinguishing effect or influence, a mark of impression made by pressure. If someone leaves an imprint on a place or on your mind, it has a strong and lasting effect. And so how do you leave an imprint through your business and on your future build or renovation that you might be looking at? So really, there's no right delivery method. It's whatever's right for you as the client. And just go through the strengths and weaknesses and make sure it really comes down to the individuals that are working on the project. And that's the most important. If you're working with someone that's open and honest and trusting and transparent, you're gonna have a great output and a great project. If everyone's moving forward together, then success is taking care of yourself. So I'm grateful for everyone's time today. I think we're about at 9:50, so 9:46. So do you have any other questions? We hope this was a good experience. Would love your feedback. This is our first one, so I'm sorry if it wasn't just perfect, but your feedback is integral of each speaker, if they're beneficial, what you'd like to hear more of, less of, what we could do better. Yes, sir.
Just going back, you had Zaggies.
Yes.
We used to have Zaggies in Alabama and
Yes,
Georgia.
in Georgia.
So the pricing changes supposed to be really modest now because the model would change the concept on the front on the Zaggies.
That's their price point that I know of that they're building all of their restaurants at. This one's a little bit smaller concept, so they put more bells and whistles. So they spend about the same money as our larger concepts. Our larger concepts run about 1.2. So they, yeah, 1.2 to 1.3. So they saved a couple $100,000 by losing square footage. But as you can see, they really put some more bells and whistles for the better experience and look.
Okay. That's fine. Yes, but $2.5 million loan SBA, so that's what I was thinking.
I have no idea. You have to factor in the land.
Yeah.
Right, so we're just one piece of that $2.5 million
Yeah.
loan because they're having to buy the land and they are probably actually putting operating costs in there as well. So they're financing, many different aspects, the land, the construction, and the operating costs. She might